You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
And hello, welcome to this special edition of the Scottish Football Zone. You're joined by myself and Robbie. It seems like we've never left the studio, Robbie, because we were on last night as well, looking back at the League Cup semi-finals. And before you ask, yes, Robbie is still happy about the League Cup final as well. So we're here to talk about the Scotland squad, Robbie. It's been announced for the up-and-coming World Cup qualifying between Greece and Scotland on the 15th of November, kick-off quarter, and also Scotland against Denmark. That is the last game at Hampden on Tuesday, the 18th of November. With a quarter kickoff, and I don't know about anybody else. You can put your comments in the chat, of course. Who would you like to see in the squad, or do you not want to see him in the squad and all that kind of nonsense? We're going to put up the squad for you now. Robbie's going to talk you through the squad, yeah, Robbie.
Hi, Michael. Two very, very big games. Obviously, I felt no lies on having to travel to Greece, pick up at least a point, and then see what we can get at home to the Danes. But just on your point earlier, I think I've done 4 podcasts now about the semi-finals, so the boredom never comes talking about it. But we are here, of course, to talk about the Scotland squad, and the goalkeeper selections is probably the most interesting. We've got Scott Bain, Craig Gordon, and Liam Kelly. I'm sure, Michael, we'll get into discussions about that. Defenders: Josh Doidge, Grant Hanley, Jack Hendry, Aaron Hickey, Ross McCrory comes in, Scott McKenna, Anthony Ralston, Andy Robertson, John Souttar and Kieran Tierney make up your defence. Into the midfield, we've got Ryan Christie, Lewis Ferguson, Ben Gannon-Doak, Billy Gilmore, John McGinn, Kenny McLean, Scott McTominay and Lennon Miller. Obviously, I believe there was a few grumbles about Billy Gilmore's injury status coming into this. Obviously, he's made the squad. Dave Clark obviously season fit. And then in the forward area, we've got Che Adams, Lyndon Dykes, George Hurst and Lawrence Shankland. But Michael, I think he's maybe mistakenly put George Hurst for Michael Mandron, really. But seriously, it's I think what we could say, Michael, is it's an unsurprising squad for Steve Clark. Obviously, the goalkeeper selection was sort of forced into a hand with Angus Gunn being injured, but the rest of the squad looks like what you pretty much expect for a Scotland team.
Yeah, as you say, Robbie, it kind of picks itself, doesn't it? Apart from the goalkeeping position, I mean, the midfield looks very strong to me. Obviously, the game's not frigging paper, but the likes of Billy Gilmore, Napoli, John McGinn, Aston Villa, Kenny McLean, Scott McTominay as well. I don't. It's, as I say, it's actually rare because obviously Grant Hanley and Grant Hanley's got a season ticket for the Scotland squad even before the Scotland squad pick. He seems to be in there all the time, Robbie. The goalkeeping one is very interesting for me, and about Scott Bain and from Falkirk, and just what do you think of that, Scott Bain? I think this is maybe his second call up. I can't remember if he's been called up before, but good. I mean, he's pulled off some good saves from Falk this season already.
Yeah, he's having a good time at Falkirk. Most importantly, Michael, we've got a goalkeeper in the squad that's actually playing first team football. I mean, you look at the other 2 selections, Craig Gordon and Liam Kelly are getting nowhere near the Hearts and Rangers squad respectively. So it was always going to be nice to get a first choice goalkeeper up. And, you look at Angus Gunn, and I think Angus is probably the strongest goalkeeper that we have. But even he's not getting first team minutes. So it's nice to finally have that change of someone that is playing so regularly. It is an interesting discussion right enough on who's Clark going to pick. for these games? Does he go for that bit more experience in Craig Gordon, or does he, go with Scott Bain, who is playing more minutes? But all that, you're right. There's no too many surprises. The midfield, as you mentioned, is really, really strong. There's some big names in there. Obviously, some big names in defence, of course. One pick in defence that's particularly interesting is Ross McCrory, who's just came back into the squad. I believe the last time he made an appearance was 2024. And I believe he only has made one for Scotland, so it's interesting to see his name back in the mix. But you're right. Players like Grant Hanley, I don't think we're particularly surprised at this point that he's in the squad, to be honest. I think he's been getting on all right at Hibs. Obviously, he's not took Rocky Bashiri out of that starting position, so obviously David Gray sees a lot in him, so does Clark. And I'm just excited to see what the team selection is going to be. The forward area is so interesting as well. None of the strikers really are scoring a lot of goals. Lawrence Shankland, I think, has come back onto form a bit, but apart from that, the spread of goals is very, very thin in the forward area, so I'm excited to see where our attack comes from when it comes to these two games.
Now, talking about up top in the middle, got to say this is going to be a kind of like maybe an emotional couple games, maybe for Andy Robertson, because he's about to win his 90th cap. Robbie, can you believe that? But I mean, he's been a good servant for Scotland.
He's been a good leader for Scotland. Andy Robertson is the first person that people go to when you're criticising the team. Naturally, as he's a captain, you see it at club level, you see it with James Tavernier at Rangers. That's another example of a fullback that will so easily get all of the stick. But I don't think you can ever doubt Andy Robertson's leadership ability and what he's proven over the last sort of 80 odd games. He is a leader. He's a born leader. And he's not just doing it for Scotland. He's a big figurehead in that Liverpool team. So congratulations to Andy when that inevitably comes. And hopefully he can break that 100 cap for Scotland.
Yep, and also Reegan has joined us at the moment, and also I've got Reegan here as well. That Lawrence Shankland has returned to the squad. Reegan, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Thanks for having me on again, Michael. I was just getting right into the house there. Thank you for having me on, guys. Again, it's great to be on again. And the Scotland squad makes interesting viewing. I mean, you've got Scott Bain, you've got Shankland and that. So I think Shankland totally is back in the Scotland squad. I mean, he's done very well, but the only question is, Robbie, is Steve Clark going to put? Is Steve Clark is he going to select him, or is he going to just put him there to just sit on the bench for 2 matches?
I think you're probably looking at the latter, to be honest with you, Reegan. But with the way Steve Clark likes to set up, and it is so interesting. Obviously, a player, Reegan, that me and Michael were speaking about there, Ross McCrory's made his way back into the team, only made one Scotland appearance. I wonder what type of role Steve Clark thinks he's going to play in the defence, and the sort of defence option. It is such an interesting team, and obviously the sort of main position that everybody's debating about is the goalkeeper right now and who's going to start there. So I think there's a few questions around the team selection, but overall, guys, I'm pretty happy with that Scotland team. I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing for me, Robbie, is the Scott Bain. I mean, potentially you could be saying he's Scotland's number one at the moment because Craig Gordon's not playing. Liam Kelly, I was never too impressed by him at Rangers. I was never too impressed by him at Motherwell. Thought he done okay. Obviously, he had that big save that he made at against Athletic Club of Spain last year in the quarterfinals. But I've never really been too impressed with him apart from that. So I think you'll go with Craig and to be the number one at the moment because I don't think you can really put Scott Bain into that Denmark match.
I would agree. I think you're right. I think he will pick Craig just purely on that experience. But at what point do we go, and out of all the options, you even fling an Angus Gunn into that, who's obviously injured right now. If you look at all the Scotland goalkeeping options, the one that's playing the most regularly is Scott Bain at Falkirk. And that should be something that Steve Clark looks at. We should look to have these first choice goalkeepers that are actually playing minutes in the squad instead of picking Angus Gunn. And look, I've not got a problem with Angus. I think he's a very good goalkeeper, and I think he always serves Scotland well. But at what point do you reward? You know, at the end of the day, Steve Clarke's now rewarded Scott Bain for that. You know, he's awarded him for getting into the Fall Cup team, making that big decision, as Clarke actually mentioned in his press conference, to leave Celtic and go out and hunt for first team minutes, which obviously couldn't have been an easy decision to leave Celtic. It's probably the club he's dreamed of playing for when he was a wee guy. So to leave that and go to Falkirk to get first team minutes, you've got to give him plaudits for that.
I think you're right, Robbie. Because obviously, I don't know about you, Reegan, but like Liam Kelly's not played in a minutes. Well, not that I can remember so far this season for Rangers, and you can maybe say the same about Craig Gordon, but I guess feel as though that Craig Gordon and maybe Scott Bain to a certain extent, well, maybe not Scott Bain, but Craig Gordon has got more kind of like experience and he's played at big levels as well for Hearts, Celtic, European football, but also Scotland.
Yeah, I think that's true, Michael. And I think if you look at the overall squad, I think there's so many places up for debate. You look at even places like striker position. I'm not a big fan of George. Is it George Hurst? I'm not a big fan of him, to be honest with you. I think Dykes is better than Che Adams because I think Dykes offers you more in terms of scoring goals. I mean, you managed to see that in the match when Celtic played. No, Celtic, sorry. Scotland played. Who did they play again? They played Greece, and Dykes scored to make it 3-1. So I think he clearly shows that he has got something there to offer. But I'm just not too sure about the striking options. If it was me choosing for the Denmark and Greece games, I would either go Dykes or Shankland for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree, Robbie, because I think Shankland's got that pedigree at the moment. He's playing well at his club. And then you look at, obviously, in terms of Dykes, he's got that credit in the back. You think of the matches against Israel, the match against Norway as well. He scores in big important matches.
I think it would be easy for me to come on with my black and white tinted specs and go, man, John should be in the squad, this and that, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm not going to do, but is throw another name, Ollie McBurney. Now, I know a lot of Scotland fans are going to hate me saying that name, right? A lot of Scotland fans do not want Ollie McBurney anywhere near the Scotland team, and I'll understand.
Me included, Rob, because I don't think I've seen that guy take a shot for Scotland before. You know, that game against that match against Serbia, he was supposed to be the striker. I know he came on there and scored a penalty that got us to the Euros, Robbie, but he just offers very, very little.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, right, both Mandron and McBurney, right, and I'm still sticking by my point about Mandron, they've both scored more than Lyndon Dykes does this season, and they've both played more minutes, considerably more minutes, by the way. Dykes has been a bench player this season, so at what point, right, to take my point about Mandron, for example, Mandron's the exact same player as Dykes. He's got the same physicality, he can hold up the ball just as well, and probably even better than Dykes, and he's played more minutes. So at what point does Steve Clarke go, right, Dykes, you've had a good run out, but you're not playing regularly first team football, whereas somebody like Mandron's coming in and scoring goals? Where do we draw the line?
Okay, no, but then I'll ask you this question. I know you've got sources as Mandron, someone that is genuinely interested in playing for Scotland. Do you know that?
100%. Mandron spoke about it publicly in the press that he'd love nothing more than to be in the Scotland team. And for me, he's another guy he's got the physicality Dykes has. I genuinely don't see what the difference is in bringing those guys in. Maybe, okay, Dykes has more Scottish experience playing on the bigger stages, fair enough. But he's not scoring goals, and at the end of the day, if we want to win these next two games and qualify ourselves for the World Cup, we're going to need to score goals in these two games.
I think you've got to. I mean, we can't read Scabby Clark's mind, and I suppose maybe Scabby Clark can't read his own mind either, Reagan. But I don't think you can. You can afford to run Shankland in and not play him in the 2 games as well. And I don't think you can afford to bring him on as a sub. Maybe a good sub to have, but when you want to go into these 2 big games and you want to have 6 points at the 2 games, you can't afford to drop him, especially because he scored last week against Celtic. But although he's on a high because Hearts are at the top of the league.
Yeah, I think they are. They're playing really well, and I think Shankland totally should be in that squad, and I think he should probably start. If you look based on form, he scored against Falkirk and Dundee the past few matches, but I don't think for me, Michael, that Steve Clark will play him. I just think that's my genuine opinion. I don't think he will. I don't even think he'll play the 2 matches. There's a stat for you, Michael. I don't think he'll play 1 single minute of the Scotland matches. There's my opinion.
Oh, right. Robert.
It would be such a waste. I shan't on his potential, and I agree with Reegan, and I forgot to actually answer his earlier question. For me, I think I'd love to see Shankland start up front, but I also agree I think he will probably pick Adams or Dykes. That's just the way it is. I don't even think George Hurst, who I believe is the most recent Scottish striker to score that's in the squad, will even get a sniff in the team either, to be honest. So, look, as Michael said, we can't read the mind of Steve Clark. We don't know what he's thinking, but just with what we've seen in the past, it does get that feeling to me. It's going to be a very similar lined up team to what we're sort of used to seeing.
Yeah,
sorry, Rick, I was just going to say at this point, like when Davies start implementing these guys, I know these are 2 huge games, right? But surely, if you're wanting to give these players experience, there's no better stage to do it in. And you need to take these risks. That the Greece manager takes the risk playing the 17-year-old winger against us, and he absolutely kills our defence in that whole game. So when's Steve Clark going to start taking that risk?
Robbie, I think Robbie personally, I think you've been spending too much time with Michael, because Michael's been banging up. Michael's been on this show for the past 2 years now, talking about young players, and I think I think both of you are spot on, because if you even look at the midfield placing, you look at people like Ferguson, you look at Lennon Miller. Well, when did we give Lennon Miller a chance? It's okay saying, well, he got so many years ahead of him, but I mean, he must be getting bored. He must be getting bored, because he's clearly he's of the mindset that he is strong enough to be in the squads. So surely he must be in a shooter playing, Robbie.
You would think so, but we're so used to seeing it with Steve Clark. Sorry, Michael. It'll not surprise me if we're seeing the same sort of bodies come in, and I suppose there will be the time. I mean, the time will come for Lennon Miller. I don't think we can keep him at the squad forever. That would be so unfair on the lad, because it is mental to me, right? And people would make the point that maybe these players aren't ready for this yet, but Lennon Miller's playing in the top flight of Italy. He's not exactly playing in a bad hunting ground. He's playing in a place where he's going to be playing at big crowds every week, big stadiums, toxic atmospheres, away from home. He's going to be playing in all these places. Lennon Miller is 100% ready to step into the Scotland team. Unfortunately for Lennon Miller, he's probably stuck in one of the hardest positions to break through in the pitch, and that's probably why he's not managed to break through yet, because we've got the likes of Scott McTominay, who, as we know, has been nominated for the Ballon d'Or. So, he's in a midfield where, let's be honest, it's highly competitive and highly unlikely that right now at this moment he'll break the way in, but he'll get there eventually, I hope.
But I mean, Robbie, you were saying that, you were saying something about when will he be ready? But I mean, if you go through all the Scotland squads, he won't be ready, and it won't be called up. And I was actually, Reegan kind of beat me to that point, because I was actually going to make it on the back of the 17-year-old point that you made there from Greece, because that's my kind of go-to subject at the moment about your football, Robbie. But I mean, look, so see if Reegan's right, and Ronnie Shank only gets a goal in the warm-up, right, and doesn't come on, right? Do you think that there'll be a time that Skeevy Crack will go to him next season. And Lauren Franklin said, no, I don't want to be in the squad.
We've heard that in the past. For what I'm led to believe, I'm not too knowledged up in former Scotland, but for what I'm led to believe, players have done that in the past where they've not wanted to play with their national team. I think that's happened in a lot of nations. So it wouldn't surprise me, but
Robbie, the one I can think of is James McArthur. They played with Crystal Palace, who basically said that he wasn't getting selected, so he wanted to focus on club football. And I think potentially it is a big year for Sheffield because he could go on and lift the Scottish Premier League title. But I mean, surely Steve Clarke must be thinking that this guy needs to play. I mean, it's okay saying Che Adams is playing at a better level, but you can say that. You can say that about anybody. But you look at people like Tony Ralston, who's in the squad. He's playing at Celtic, and I do think sometimes that Steve Clarke has got his maybe his favourite players that he tends to pick, and I think sometimes that's why Scotland fans can get so frustrated. Robbie.
Aye, well, here's a perfect example for you. Kenny McLean might well start at Lennon Miller, but there's no doubt Lennon Miller's playing at a higher level than Kenny McLean. So that's I think you make a very valid point, Reegan. It's, he's not just picking. He should look at such a double-edged sword because I don't even think McLean's been bad for Scotland, but it makes your point so valid that Lennon Miller is playing at the higher level gap than Kenny McLean is. And yet he's not even getting anywhere near the Scotland team. So, I just love to see these boys get a chance. And look, if Clarke does keep the same team selection that we're used to seeing for these two games, I won't particularly blame him because they are so massive games and for Scotland's future. But at what point do you just fling these players in and go, look, go and show me what you can do?
Robbie, and it just proves that Steve Clarke's management is no longer about playing players in form. It's just about being loyal. Because if you look at the centre-back place on the park, I mean, that's a great example as well. I mean, you look at people like Grant Hanley, you look at John Suter, for example. I've been a big fan of John Suter, Robbie, right? But I've watched him this season so far, in most of the Rangers games, and I watched him in person yesterday, and he was really bad. He was really bad, and I'm starting to think to myself, no, if John Suter and Grant Hanley are getting picked over Craig Halkett and Stuart Finlay as well, you start to go, well, what is Steve Clarke actually watching? Because there was a point yesterday where I think I'm sure it was Osmond from Celtic. I mean, he was going down the sort of wide place on the park, and John Suter just brings him down and gets a yellow card right away. And I'm thinking,
well, yeah,
surely Stuart Finlay and Craig Halkett have got to feel very hard done by, and I think especially, sorry Michael,
yeah.
But I think especially, Robbie, because Steve Clarke's got that experience with Stuart Finlay as well. I mean, he clearly knows him.
Well, I mean, so sorry I cut across you with Reegan, like what you make. This is a perfect point for me to bring up youth football again on the show. Right? So if you're taking Osmond, right? Okay, I know Scotland's totally different from club football, and you can't assign players. You can only work with the hand that you're dealt, right? But just take Osman, right? He came on to a big game yesterday, he scored a goal, he never scored another one, right? So there's Scotland. We've got Kieran Barry, Lauren Shankland, and players like that, right? And what I was about to say, Robbie, was it's all right playing them in friendlies, but you're not going to learn anything. Whereas if you throw them into a pressurized cooker game, like the game's coming up against Greece and Denmark, you would want to basically cut your teeth at that level. No kind of friendly against Moldova at Hampden Park.
Michael Clark's not even playing these guys against Belarus. I mean, that's how bad it was getting at one point. And I know Belarus gave us a tough game at Hampden. You can make that point, but we wouldn't have known that before kickoff. So the fact that he's still not selecting these guys in these type of games shows how truly loyal he is, and that's not in a good sense, to be honest with you. I mean, if we're not going to play these guys at home against Belarus, where the crowd are right up for it, then when are we going to play them? When are they going to get in? It's not a friendly match away at San Marino that we're just never going to learn anything about these players. I mean, your point's so valid, and it is something that I hope that. Look, Clark's time, he will move on after the World Cup. I believe that. I think if we don't qualify or we do qualify, that will be his last. Whoever the next Scotland manager is, he needs to build around the future and he needs to start giving these guys chances.
I mean, you even look at people like David Watson, who clearly, for me, Robbie, I'm watching Scottish football every single week. That is a guy that's shining every single week. He's Scottish, he's playing really well, and I don't know if he's got a granny from Argentina or Brazil, whatever. But these are guys that we could potentially lose as well.
Yeah.
100%. Aye, there is players there that are capable. I'm not going to go into data. I don't know fully who, but I'm assuming there's players in that squad that have other opportunities to play elsewhere. But these guys, when you grow up, you ask people, what would you want to do when you're older? And it's always score for Scotland. You know what I mean? Like, these guys want to give it all to the country, and when they're not getting chances, it must be a huge blow to them.
And you look at Shankland, for example, right? I mean, he's gonna go. I know it sounds bad because he's on a lot of money and he's making a lot of money for his family, whatever. But it must be like, see if you're Lawrence Shankland and you've got a free week. I mean, he could be on holiday with his family. He could be spending time with them, but he's going to a hotel with Scotland and he's been there, but he's not getting any chances. So I think there's only so long you could really sit on that bench, and it's okay me saying it from a selfish point of view. But I think eventually you would get a little bit bored.
Aye, probably. You probably wouldn't want to leave your own camp, whatever club you're at, go and play with Scotland if you know you're not going to go on the pitch. And like, I suppose I spoke a lot negatively about the team selection and Clark and stuff like that for the opening 27 minutes. I'm going to try and bring it back to a wee positive note and speak about one player who has played up more often, and it's Ben Doak. Young guy came into the squad and he's looked fantastic basically every time we've seen him. The way he picks up the ball, he's not scared to take anybody on, and he just looks like a real creative force every game. And one player that we're going to need to be on fire during these next two games, it's going to be him if we want to try and get something out of these games.
I think it is, Robbie, because Robbie, I don't know about you, but I'm not of the opinion that we need to beat Greece. I think we need to get a draw because we don't actually need to beat Greece. Okay, we might need to beat Greece to be a little more positive, but I think the most important thing is that we get a point, because then if we beat Denmark, then we're basically there,
Yeah, I'd agree, but I think the fans will be thinking purely because Greece are already out of this group, they'll probably be going, right, we should go earlier, and because we've got something to play for, we should go and look to go and win. But I completely agree with your point, and I would agree with you that we should go earlier, aiming to get at least a point out of the game.
Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Scottish Football Zone, and also if you haven't subscribed to the Spotify channel as a podcast, you can do that because Reegan has just put up interviews from the weekend. He went to see his second team in Glasgow, Packet Thistle, where he interviewed Alex Ray and Packet Thistle player. So you can see, no, you can't see that. If you can see that, you must be psychic. You can hear the interviews on Spotify. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the channel, the Scottish Football Zone, and we'll be on with the Scotland games against Greece on the 15th of November and the Hampden game between Scotland and Denmark on the 18th of November at Hampden Park. As well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I always feel very negative when I talk about Stevie Clark's team, right? And I know you're kind of bring it back, Robbie, and yeah, I mean, I'm maybe I'm just too old for this now, right? But I think that Stevie Clark would win more fans over if he plays the players that he's calling up, i.e. young players, but also when you get to the tournament, you want to actually do something at the tournament. Like you don't want to go and make up the numbers.
That is ultimately, I think, the biggest disappointment for Scotland fans so far under Clark, that when we have got there, it's no went well. And it's going to be such a tougher tournament as well, guys. It's no like we're taking into a Euro field again. We're playing some of the best nations in the world. By the time we go over there, depending on the group we get, we could face some really tough teams for over in America and stuff like that. So there's that as well. But the expectation will be there to go and get it all. Reegan, how many times do we watch teams in the Euros? You've seen it last time. It was something like Ukraine or one of the small nations that went into the tournament and gave it the all. I'm pretty sure they played like a top 5 nation and with one go up. You don't see Scotland in that.
Yeah, it was Croatia. They almost beat.
Yeah.
And then Croatia beat them.
Yeah, perfect example of a team going out of a major tournament, giving it the all, and leaving no regrets, and it's something Clark's not done.
Yeah, and I think the point, Robbie, as well is that I think you said that about the Euros and obviously the trophy over America being totally different. I think that's spot on as well, because I don't know about you, Robbie, but I've been told I don't know if Michael was born then, he probably was because he's that old, but I mean, like I've been told from my uncles and all that they got the day off school to see John Scotland scoring a penalty against Brazil as well. So
Yeah.
Michael probably seen that when he was at school. But,
I was a ball boy. No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, I mean, I remember that kind of day, and the whole country was up for that, Robbie. And I think it was our own goal that we lost the game. I think we lost the game 3-1, the opening game against Brazil.
Yeah, I remember John Collins scoring a penalty. Well, I'm trying to remember. I was still in my mum's belly at the moment. In 1998, Michael. But
I
yeah,
cannot believe you said that live on the show, Reegan. That's brilliant.
well, I mean that's why you've. I mean that's why I'm on the show, Michael.
You go back.
Yeah.
You go back to some of the old goals that people talk about, and you always see it in highlight packages. It was Archie Gemmel's against the Dutch in the 1978 World Cup. That's a goal that always gets played, and obviously, we want moments like that. But Reegan's right on the point. Seeing we go to the World Cup, it's not going to be like the Euros at all. We're going to be facing some very tough teams. For example, I've been watching the Jamaicans quite a bit because obviously St. have a few players here now. One of them's in the national team, so I've been watching them. Sorry,
Steve McLaren. He wouldn't be getting his brolly there. He'll be scorching. He'll be getting the brolly. Taking the sun off.
But the Jamaican, the group they're playing in, it's a very open play field. The Jamaicans themselves, they have some very, very good quality players. So when if Scotland get the World Cup, that is, then it's not going to be an easy field to go out and try and go out the group. I don't think it all depends on the group you get, because look, we could get handed a really, really tough group here in America, and then suddenly the playing field changes. But I think every Scotland fan would just be happy if we just left no regrets earlier. If we went out of America and we just left everything on the pitch, I think we'd be so happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the point? What's the point of going to these tournaments, Reegan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people are going to win the tournament. Like, even if we can get out of the group, or even if we're playing like Brazil or Germany, then at least if we score a goal and we do well, then people can go, right, Scotland actually done well here. So I think it's all about the credibility of Scotland, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Mike, I was just going to say, just don't do what we done against Germany last time in the Euros, because we don't want that again.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I know we're never going to win the World Cup, you know, maybe Stranger since you can, but I mean, you want to go over there and put a bit of a fight and at least get out of the group, and you know, you never know. Okay, we'll be up against it, but um, if you go on with the attitude of this tournament, Reagan, that we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. What's the point of actually going to these tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch these matches, Michael. I hope me and you are doing the Scottish Football Zone live from George Square when.
From Donald Trump's house?
No, I don't fancy going to Donald Trump's house. I'm sorry, Donald, if you're watching the Scottish Football Zone. I know you've got ties. Good ties to Scotland for that, Donald, but I don't really fancy joining you at Washington DC. But
We're getting some 5 a.m. live reactions to Scotland beating England 2-0 or something like that in the World Cup. But not like Michael. I know there's a lot of. I feel like the last couple of Scotland squads there has been a lot of negativity coming off of fans. If we actually look at how it's gone, though, we're 5 games unbeaten at this point. We're on a good run of form. We're playing all right stuff at times. Of course, the Belarus game is very hard to try and break them down, but we did get through it. So at least we can take that going into the next 2 games that we're on that sort of unbeaten run.
Yeah. I mean, I think it helps us, Reagan, as well, having the last game against Denmark at home.
yeah, I mean, I think that's massive because we can actually put the pedal on the floor and try and go for it. Because I think if it was away from home, Steve Clark would set up quite negatively and try and get 1-0. But I think because we're at home, the impetus is going to be on Scotland, Robbie, to go there and try and win the match. So I think it suits Steve Clark and it suits Scotland.
100%, and team selection in that game will be vital as well. We cannot go defensive against Denmark at home. We cannot afford to. Denmark will probably still be a bit aggrieved after last time we played them when obviously it finished 0-0. I actually thought their 2 strikers, Dolberg and Birev, had 2 really, really poor games that day, to be honest with you. And I will be looking to try and beat the Danes, hopefully. Obviously, a player you'll know very well, Reagan, Kasper Schmeichel, will be looking to try and come to Hampden and stop us automatically qualifying. But I just hope, again, like we talk about getting out of the major tournaments, I really hope the players leave it out on the pitch, because we leave ourselves with a really good chance. Denmark are the unbeatable. We've done it before to them, so we know how to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, I think you're spot on there about Schmeichel. I mean, I was watching the match yesterday from the National Stadium, and I was thinking Schmeichel always drops a clanger. So I was quite glad that he actually saved Celtic yesterday. But I'm hoping that he dropped a few clangers in the Scotland game. To be honest with you, Robbie.
I think a lot of the Celtic fans are behind that, Reagan. But it is such an interesting game, and when we get closer to it, obviously there's still another week, a week and a bit before we sort of get undergone with these 2 games. But I'm really excited, and I just hope if we do it, then the party starts again. People will be booking their flights out of America. Some people probably already have them booked, to be honest, out of America and Mexico and wherever else this is going to be held. And hopefully Scottish go and have a party, because I think that's what guys what they do best.
Yep. Robbie, I've got a wee question for you guys, right? Do you actually believe that if we do qualify and say a brand new wee striker pops up and he starts scoring 15 goals from now until the end of the season, do you think Steve Clark will play him, or do you think he'll stick by the players that we actually have got in the squad right now? Because I think that's a problem. Well, I know because people said it last season, Robbie, when I think it was Danny Armstrong did really well. People were saying, "Oh, I wonder if Danny Armstrong's going to go to the Euros," but there was no mention of it. There was no mention of it.
No, I mean, the last big striker we sort of had break through was Kevin Nisbet, and he barely even got a sniff at the Scotland squad. So, I would be asking the question. And I think it depends on the circumstances, Reagan. If somebody pops out anywhere and starts scoring every week in the Premiership and he's on about 20 goals by the time we're getting through to the World Cup, then Steve Clarke's got to just make the decision. It's a simple decision at that point. I don't think you can turn away from that fact. You know, to take my own striker, if Manjon went the rest of the season, scored every week, right, and finished on about 30 goals, Steve Clarke would have no choice. You've got to pick him in the same way any other club. If James Wilson scored 30 at Hearts or Shankland scored 30 goals, and I know Shankland has done, by the way, and still not get in, but at that point, you just need to pick your best players for the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to ask you then, Robbie, about James Wilson. I mean, it just shows you the strength of Hearts that this season that they have that he's not actually featured too much.
I'd be interested to hear from Graham and see if maybe Derek McInnes, what his thoughts on Wee Wilson is. I thought he maybe if he wasn't going to be playing, he would have maybe go loaned out. But Reagan, you've got to. I mean, you just look at that attack for Hearts, and I think it's pretty obvious why he's not getting in. You've got Cabot, who's just come into the team. He's just scored 2 goals. Not to mention Shankland, Kabangu. You've got Braga, Kazridis. There's so many options there, so you kind of feel bad for the guy because he was getting a run, but the business that Hearts have conducted there this summer has meant that he's really just getting no chance. And by the way, James Wilson's on a bit of a goal scoring streak. I don't know if you guys have been keeping attention to the under 21s, but he did score a hat trick against Gibraltar when we beat them 12-0. So he is still there scoring goals at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just quite interested, Robbie, in terms of like obviously Steve Clarke as well. Do you actually believe that he'll stick to the squad that played the last matches, or do you think he'll change it up?
I don't think he'll change at this point. And to be honest, Reagan, I think I'm one of the only Scotland fans that we come on here and say I don't blame him. It is, as much as we came on this show, and I know we've spent a lot of the last 40 minutes talking about giving these guys a chance, how risky a move would it be at this point in the campaign to go, you know what, I'm going to fling him in, or I'm going to fling him in. And I get that's what Scotland fans, I get that's what we want more than anything, but it just feels with the importance and the calibre of these 2 games, I don't know if this is it for these players to fling them in at this point. Maybe to bring on the pitch after 70 minutes and, you know, go on and make an impact, but certainly no starting because it's 2 huge games for Scotland.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, Robbie. Like, bring them on, but don't bring them on with like 2 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go. 20 minutes.
I definitely know with like 2 minutes to go, there's been no point at that point. Get the boys on, let them make an impact. And I would just say that I mean, but I definitely don't think we should be completely writing up the system and the team that we've played throughout the whole campaign, and you know, flinging in all these guys that have barely got the experience. But put them in it with 20 minutes to go. What's the harm? You know, go on and give guys like Shankland a run out, even if you're not going to start him. You know, bring him on the last 20 minutes and see what he can do. Shankland's a guy that if you give him one chance, he'll score it. And we're hoping he can do that during this campaign, because if we need, you know, 1 goal either way in a match, I'd back him to score.
Okay, Robbie, I've got a wee question for you. I think the right back placings is a little bit of a worry for me, because I'm not really a big fan of Ralston and McCrory as well. I don't know about him.
I'd agree. I think the right back slot is definitely up for grabs. I don't think it's MD's right now. And you're right. To be honest, I've never been too fond of Ralston. I think he's like I think bar that 1 Euros game, I don't think he's ever had a absolutely terrible performance for Scotland. But I don't think he's ever been sensational. Obviously, Hickey's back in the squad. Does that mean we're maybe going to see him get put into that position and play there? I'm not sure, but it is definitely a position that is up for grabs.
There you go. That is the Scotland squad being announced today by Stevie Clarke. Don't forget that we'll be on for the Scotland games on when Scotland plays again. They are playing against Greece. In fact, that's a Saturday night. That's going to be quite interesting. A 1:15 kickoff on the 15th of November. And then on the 18th of November, will be on again for the Scotland and Denmark game. And we've got Scottish football covered here, guys, because we'll be off a few days and then we'll be back on for the big European action on Thursday night for Rangers. How will they bounce back? Celtic, how will they get a point away to Midtjylland? It's going to be a tough game. Midtjylland's top of the league. And what about Aberdeen as well? We'll have all the answers here for you at 10 o'clock, and also we'll be here on Friday as well. If you haven't heard me saying this, well, I'll say it again. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Robbie and Reegan said that one. No, Michael. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is the Scottish Football Zone on YouTube, and you can listen to us on the bus or whatever you get your podcasts apps from. It is on the App Store. Just look for the Scottish Football Zone as well. So thanks to Robbie, thanks to Reegan, thanks to all your comments tonight, and we'll do it all again on Thursday live here on the Football Zone at 10 o'clock.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reaction.